Surrounded by greatness. Welcome to the Big D podcast.
Oh,
we're back.
We're here.
Okay, we're doing it.
We're living, we're filming, we're doing it. We got a net in the house today.
Oh my
and I'm
gosh.
super pumped. One of the sharks. How do we even? I don't even know how we define it. It's like just a. What do sharks swim in? Like a gaggle.
Group-wise?
Like a gaggle of sharks.
Gaggle.
I mean, probably like a whole fleet of sharks.
Flock of sharks.
A flock of sharks.
I
Flock
actually
of
don't
sharks.
know what it's called, like
Nah,
what the term is.
I don't know if there is.
flock?
I don't think they roll like that.
Well, we
Actually,
got
hammerheads do.
we got one of the flock over here. We're flocked out.
Flocka.
We're flocked out of our minds over here. We got a net in the house. Yahoo!
Hey, thank you guys so much. Oh my gosh, you guys are the best. My East Side boys. Thank you.
We're the East Side boys. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we were talking a little bit before the pod about the state of the market right now.
Yeah.
It's a little wonky, a little crazy. We can definitely dive into that during the podcast. I think it's very prevalent, but who knows how long that information will be good for. But I'd rather start and talk about you. So
I'm down.
let's start from the beginning. Let's start like where you're from, family. Tell us the whole lead up to like getting into real estate, and then we can get to what everybody wants to hear. They want to hear that big D. They want to hear the whole thing.
Let's do it. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh, I feel like my entire story is kind of long and crazy.
Really?
I feel like I've already lived like 3 lives.
Okay.
I'm serious.
Do tell.
No, I'm serious. So I come from pretty humble beginnings. Like I've been on my own at a pretty young age. So 13, I was like on my own doing my thing.
Where are you from originally?
So I'm from El Paso, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a Texas girl. I'm a Texan, but I grew up the majority of like my childhood in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, so kind of from the hood. Been on my own since I was 13. Mom was incarcerated the majority of my life. So she was in prison. My dad, he was there, but very emotionally unavailable man. Like I've always been on my own. Like I've kind of
Really?
just been hanging out with friends, like did my own thing, for as long as I can remember.
So from a young age, it was like if you wanted to do something, it wasn't like, hey, mom, dad, can I go do this?
No, I was like out in the streets till like for days at a time, like kind of just hanging out with friends, and then I'd show up to school when I kind of want. Like,
Oh my goodness.
it's crazy,
That is
right?
wild. So mom's incarcerated. What is that like for you? Like, is there like engagement there between you and mom? Like, are you like going to visit? And does she
Yeah.
want you to visit? Like, how does that go?
So it's crazy, right? Because the earliest memory I have of my biological mother was her getting taken away at like 5 a.m. at an apartment we lived in El Paso when I was like 3. So that's like the earliest memory I have. It's some crazy shit. I was so young that I didn't really know like what was actually happening. So
Yeah.
it wasn't up until maybe I was like 9 or 10 that I found out that she was actually in prison that whole time. My dad was trying to keep me safe and like tell me that she was like in school or some shit.
She's like off working.
Yeah,
doing
and then I found
mom
out,
shit.
and then
out there.
like mature enough to understand. Like I overheard like a conversation my dad was having with my grandma, like, oh, like when is she gonna get out of jail, blah blah blah, or like when can visitation happen, right? And then I was like, my mom's in jail, what? And then I find out this whole thing, and it's like, yeah, life turning. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that was up until
So she was incarcerated up until I was 15.
Up until you're 15.
Yeah.
And what was the relationship like with mom before she got out? Like, were you visiting? Did you have any relationship or whatsoever?
Yeah. Well, correction. It was up until I was 13, I think.
Okay.
She was actually out. But in between, she actually got transferred to like some sort of like rehabilitation center.
Okay.
So I would go see her. Like when
Yeah.
I was in Albuquerque growing up there, I would go visit El Paso for family and stuff, and then like go see her at these like rehab places.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. I didn't really see her as like a mother figure. It was
I was
more of
gonna
like I
ask.
kind of know who you are.
I was going to ask, it's almost like not, I don't want to sound rude, but was it almost like, hey, I almost have a responsibility to go see her because she is my
Yes.
mother.
Oh my
but
God.
but it wasn't like, oh, I miss you. It was like, I think I should be doing this. Like,
No.
was that kind of what it was?
It was like a forced thing. I was like, I don't want to spend my summer going over here. Like, I'm trying to hang out with my friends. Like,
Yeah.
it was totally weird. But that was the majority of like our relationship.
And you didn't really know any different. So it wasn't like, she was like there the whole time, and then now she's gone, but it's like she kind of always been there. From what you can remember, she kind of always been there, right? So
Yes.
it's like, that's just kind of what life is.
Yeah, and so it was like very sporadic visitations. Like it was like maybe once or twice a year. Like it wasn't like a full on every weekend type of relationship.
How were things like when you were younger? Were you like on your own, like wilding a little bit? Were you still like pretty like stable and like did things very normal, or were you scrappy? Were you like the girl in school that like, hey, give me the wrong look and like
So
it's going down?
yeah, I'm gonna keep it real. So I got into a lot of trouble early on. Like
Really?
I was very much like a a tomboy, so I hung out with my stepbrothers the majority of my life. They kind of like, I wouldn't say raised me, but while I was growing up, I was around them all the time. So they're older. I was around like 18, 19-year-old boys when I was like 12, you know, so early on.
Grew up fast.
I grew up so fast, right? And then I got introduced early on into like gangs and drugs. And then at one point I was dealing when I was, you know, really young and into all that. So yeah, I was bad.
That's hustle though. Hey, listen, that's
Gotta start. Hey,
Yeah.
you start with selling dogs potentially. You know,
Yeah,
when
dude.
you're some people.
Ramon sold dogs.
Jem sold shoes.
Yep.
We did shoes for a while, shoe gang.
Yeah.
Shoe gang.
And then we got, you know, and then over
Slanging
here
dope.
slanging a little bit of dope.
Slanging
every
dope.
once in a
You know
while.
what I did? And like, I feel like that's where a lot of my hustle comes from, because it's like, I've known it early on. Like, I did what I had to do, but yeah, it's crazy, right?
It is crazy, but I mean, obviously we'll get to the rest of the story, but already it's funny because like everyone's labeled as like whatever, like, you know, like for us, like usually it's like we're white males, right? Dude, like I'm like anytime anyone asks me anything political, I'm like, dude, I'm a white dude from Gilbert. Like I don't really get an opinion.
Yeah.
Right. But like already to see like what you're doing now in the humble beginnings, like I'm so curious as like the middle of the story and like how this stuff transitions. So like how do you go from like mom gets out of incarceration at 13, and then how old are you now?
So I'm 24.
24. And when did
Yeah.
you actually start in real estate? Like when did you start working with Ramon?
I started with Ramon September of 2021. So I've been with
Oh,
him
okay.
9 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Fresh.
Yeah, everybody thinks I've been with him for like years. I'm like, I just started.
Seems
I'm a year into real estate.
That's
like this
crazy.
is so brand new for
Okay.
me.
Well,
Yeah.
take us through the rest of that story. Take us through like you're moving, you get here. Like how's
Well,
this?
well, some of those in between jobs up to
Yeah. How do you
the
how do
real
you
estate
how do you
stuff.
get
How
here?
does real estate tie into it?
Got you. So when my mom gets out, right, I actually want to develop like some sort of relationship with her. I'm like 14 at this time. So I'm like prime of like curiosity and rebellion. And so I'm like Deuce's dad. Like I left Albuquerque, went to go try to reconnect with my mom. I was fortunate enough to have my grandmother and my aunt like really kind of guide me somewhat through life, or just really be present.
Yeah.
So they kind of kept me on track to get through high school. I graduate with honors and like, you know, step away from doing all the gangs and, you know, the drugs. And
Graduate
stuff
with
like that.
honors. So
I
hold on.
did.
How do we go from like you showing up to school when you wanted to graduating with honors? Like
So-
what happened there?
I get with my mom and I'm like a freshman in high school. And I think like, oh my God, like I'm gonna reconnect with her. Like this is gonna be awesome. Like we could live together. Well, it turns out it's like horrible. I see her as like a roommate. I'm a rebellion. I'm like 14. I don't care.
See, it had to have been a tough age, especially for a female to go reconnect with like a mother figure.
Oh, it's friends. It's
Usually-
friends,
It
was
though.
so
It's
weird.
just friends,
Well,
though,
usually
more or
if it's
less.
like a more
Party,
traditional,
hang
like
out.
if you grew up with them, usually at 14, the daughters want to do this, like peel off and like,
Yeah.
nah, mom.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I had this initial idea. I'm like, okay, well, I definitely don't like living the situation with my dad. Like, I hated my stepmom. I was never home. I was literally on the streets all times.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, my mom's out. You know, maybe this is like a fairy tale type of thing where I could go reconnect with her. We could develop this relationship and like have something really cool, right? Well, I have no respect for her. Like, she tries to tell me what to do. I'm so rebellious. I'm like, nah. So I end up, and that was like my freshman and sophomore year of high school. I'm like a total fuck up. I'm like not going to school. I'm skipping class. Still heavily involved in all that like gang stuff. But my grandma, she was like, you know what, you're gonna come live with me. You're gonna get your life straight. Like I'm not gonna allow you to kind of throw it all away. Like you're so young. And so I did that junior, senior year.
Did you have fear at that point that was what was going to happen? Like, were you cognizant of like, oh, I'm making these decisions, I'm doing this day to day, but was there a little bit in the back of your mind like, shit, if I keep going down this path, like it's probably not going to go that well?
100%. Honestly, like
Yeah.
to keep it real, and I know you guys podcast real, like I didn't think that I was gonna be living very long. Like I was, cause I was heavily involved into some crazy shit. I'm a woman, right?
Yeah.
Small girl. Like yeah, I was hanging around the wrong crowd. Things that could get me in trouble. And El Paso is also known for like human trafficking and shit. The
Yeah.
cartel's heavily over there. You know what I'm saying? So
I've heard stories about bullets flying over the border and hitting the UTEP.
yeah, that's university over there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's 100% true. And with how crazy I was always going to Juarez, like without my grandma knowing. And what we would do is we would take a taxi, cross the border, party, and then walk back. And so there was just so many times like I had my life at risk. It was crazy.
It sounds like grandma was just like, nope, like this isn't happening.
Yeah.
Like not my granddaughter. So she takes you in, you move in with grandma.
I do, yeah. And then I get my shit together, right? So she's pretty like heavy like on the discipline. Like she was like, this is my house. She's a traditional Mexican woman. So she's like, she won't sleep at night unless I'm home type of thing.
Damn.
She likes dinner, like she cooks dinner. So I love her, man. She's like my guardian angel, I say all the time. She really kept me in check. I graduated with honors. Like I keep my, like, I got my shit together, right?
Yeah. She must have been proud, like to see where you were at and then go graduate with honors. It's like,
100%.
Yeah, a couple years.
Well, yeah, I mean,
change.
she knew my mom. Like, she was very close with my mom, still till this day, my biological mother. So she knows, like, the path I could have potentially taken, right?
Fuck yeah.
And, no, she was definitely there for me, and she really pulled me out of it. And so, I graduated high school, did the whole thing. Well, now, like, real life starts.
Yeah.
So I do end up finding myself getting into some trouble again. And, the turning point for me, guys, was I actually got arrested. So I was in jail.
Really?
I was.
So it's
yeah.
overnight?
Damn.
A couple days?
No, so I stayed with my grandma for a little bit, went back to Albuquerque to try to stay, like, reconnect with my dad, because I was just so lost. I was like, what do I do after high school? Everything was so structured. I kind of had, like, was told what to do.
Yeah.
Went back with my dad, reconnected with some of the wrong friends again, and then went back to El Paso. I was, like, back and forth so many times. I ended up getting into some trouble, and that landed me in jail.
Damn. Arrested with honors? They're gonna arrest an honor student? We can't
So,
get a.
so we're gonna wear my cap in there? too?
Yeah.
Like, how does it work?
Yeah, but I was actually, so 2 years had passed, so I was actually 20 at this time.
Damn.
Yeah, so
How long were you in for?
3 days. Nothing
Oh,
crazy.
okay.
Nothing
All right.
crazy.
I thought you were about to tell me like a year. I'm like, damn.
No,
this girl
God,
like,
no, I would not live.
Came back,
Hey.
Matt Ramon started real estate.
I was gonna say-
end of story.
Yeah.
I was gonna tell Colby to hide the shanks, man. Like get those things out of here.
No, yeah, but
So what brings you to Arizona?
so that's kind of like, it was after getting, locked up. Having that experience was like so freaking life changing. Like it really shook me up. Like I was like, okay, I can't be doing this shit. Like I am going to get myself like into some really big trouble. I'm an adult now.
Was there like, oh shit, I'm turning into my mom?
Yeah, to be honest, it was, because I was like, what am I doing? Like, there's no reason for me to do this. Like, I have people that love me, right? My grandma that like kept me on check for some time, and I'm like, I kind of relapsed essentially.
Yeah.
But what brought me to Arizona, so after going through all that shit, I was like, okay, I really want to pursue my dreams. What are my dreams? I really enjoyed traveling, so I really, really liked that. And I landed a job as a flight attendant.
Oh damn.
Yeah. So,
What airline?
Well, American.
Dude, I'm American. Listen, I've been an American guy through and through, but they keep canceling fucking flights on me. I'm gonna lose my goddamn mind.
Yeah, the airlines suck ass now, especially with COVID and like everything. It took a really big hit, so
Yeah.
it was horrible. But it took a while, so it took me like a whole year to get my felony like expunged. So I actually had to hire a lawyer, like get all that stuff taken care of. Then I got hired with the airlines. Well, the airlines took me to Dallas, and then I got an assignment over here.
Okay.
So Phoenix, it brought me to AZ.
Okay, so now, so I don't really understand how that world works, but like it
Yeah.
sounds like, hey, your new home base is out of Phoenix.
Yes.
Go move there so we can
Yeah, I
send you on
literally.
flights.
Okay. So I was originally based out in Dallas, so I took all my shit from El Paso, drove over there, found a place to stay, and then I would fly out of Dallas Fort Worth.
Yeah, that's a big airport too, right?
It's huge.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's massive.
They have like that train in between the different terminals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, where'd you move to when you moved out here?
So I got an apartment down in Tempe, like right by the university, because it was so close to the airport.
And you were how old at this time?
I was 22.
Oh, I bet that was fun.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I loved it.
Yeah,
'cause I
Tempe
initially
at
came-
22. Shit.
Yeah. I initially came here and I was like, oh my God, ASU is so much fun. Like,
Yeah.
that was my dream college, but college was never in the cards for me. It was just too damn expensive,
Yeah.
let alone ASU.
Yeah,
You know?
but now it's kind of like made the right call.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
So I'm here for 2 years. Well, I move when kind of COVID hits. So,
Okay.
And then like it just totally kills the airlines. Like there was one point where I was sleeping like in the airport with my crew because they didn't book us like a hotel, like some crazy shit. They were like out in funding, like they weren't scheduling us. I think my last paycheck with American was like $200.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I could not pay
Jesus.
rent. It was crazy.
What are you doing like when I'm always curious what people were doing when the lockdown hit.
Oh my God, I was partying a lot.
Were you?
Yeah.
And you were
Me
like,
and my friends-
well, fuck, I guess I gotta stay
Well,
at my house for a little bit.
I got furloughed. Like I was one of the ones that got furloughed. I didn't have
Yeah.
enough seniority. So they were like, hey, like you won't be flying for X amount of time. And it was like a period of like 3 months. And so I also didn't get any of like the funding. So I was kind of screwed. I was
Yeah.
doing like side jobs to really keep afloat, like Instacart and Uber and stuff like that
No shit.
to make some rent. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's crazy.
So how'd you find Ramon?
So I find Ramon during the whole COVID thing. I was telling myself, I was like, you know what? I'm extremely unhappy. I found myself like super sad, like that my dream career essentially is kind of going to shit. So I'm like, all right, what can I do like that would, help me going towards my dream of like being able to travel and stuff. Like all roads led to real estate. It's like, hey, you can make a shit ton of money. Like you could travel, you could be your own boss type of thing, right? So then I start looking up people just like on social media. And of course, Ramon like pops up because he's just great at marketing. So Ramon pops up and I found him through social.
Okay. And you just DM'd him and like, hey, what's up? I want a job.
Man, like, so I like was looking at all like his social media, like his YouTube, and I found one of his videos that talks about his story. So he was talking about like how he sold dogs and the hustle and the grind and like coming from Mexico and like
getting chased by the news through the park.
Literally all this shit. So I kind of felt like I related to it. And so I did DM him and I was like, hey, like I found your story and this is my story and this is like what I'm willing to do to like reach success. So I was like, hey, like I'm willing to do whatever. Like I'm in this position right now where I'm not even making shit. Like,
and where are we now? What month are we in? We're still in 2020?
Yeah.
Yeah. What month in 2020 is this?
I don't remember.
It had to have been towards the end, right? Because you really started in 2021?
Yes.
Okay. So we're towards the end of 2020. You're like, hey, man, give me a job. He obviously says yes.
The end of 2020, starting 2021. Well, I go to his office. He invites me to his office. Super cool. We had a conversation. He's like, hey, you're hired. You're like, we have this job as like, I think he initially said TC, but it would be like a utility just to figure out what I'm good at. Yeah, would I fit in? Well, I actually declined it.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
I decline it because I get an email saying that I could fly again.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So
you go from nothing to like, oh shit, I got two options now.
Yeah, and then well, it seemed almost too good to be true, and then I was like, well, this is my passion. Ramon was essentially at that time like a backup, like trying to figure out what the hell I was wanting. Yeah. So I tell Ramon, I'm like, hey, like this is my passion, like this is what I'm gonna pursue. I'm gonna fly for a little bit longer. And he's like totally cool with it. Like Ramon, like he's awesome.
He's like, whatever.
So he's like, yeah, chase your dreams. Like that's what I'm doing. Yeah. Yeah. So I actually end up flying for a few more months. Shit goes to hell again, like with COVID and like the second virus coming. And,
we're back.
Yeah, all this craziness. And so I hit up Ramon again. Like, well, we keep in contact. Yeah. Like, he's super cool, and like we just keep like a professional relationship. And it was actually, I think, sometime around the finals, he hits me up because he knows like I'm a really big Suns fan. Yep. It's like, hey, I'm stuck in Hawaii. Do you want these tickets to the finals to like to see them play Milwaukee, right? Yeah. So I take a friend. And then he like asks, he's like, well, how are you doing? Like with airlines, we know it's kind of shitty. I'm like, man, it sucks. Like I'm back to square one. Like I'm not really flying. And he's like, well, that job's still there. And I'm like, I'll take it. So.
Well, that's good. It'd probably be better off that you were like, because if you would have just said yes at first and then like the airline thing on the back burner, you would have never experienced like the pain that came with it. Yeah. And you always wondered like, man, what if I'd have fucking... Right? What if I had stayed doing that? Where would that have gone? 100%. So,
I feel like even after COVID, the airline, no one's a happy flyer anymore.
No, I still keep in touch with people that like are still flying, like people that are like here based out of Phoenix, and they're like, it's a shit show. Like, it's an absolute shit show. They're not getting scheduled, or they're working long days, getting paid very little. I'm like, fuck, no.
Nah, you made the right decision. So you start working for Ramon, and it just starts like raining checks on you, or what? What happens next?
No, it's so crazy because I initially had no idea. I don't have history of real estate. Like I don't come from a background of it, so I didn't really know what I was wanting to do, or like,
just the terminology alone, you're like, huh? Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, like, so
escrow, title, what?
Exactly. I was like, I don't know anything, like zero, right? So I was like, well, I need to learn the basics. I signed up for like the real estate school. Yeah. And I did the whole schooling. Okay. I didn't pass the test.
I was gonna say that's always a question whenever I hear like the real estate. How many takes?
How many reps do you get in on that thing?
So I tried 3 times. Okay. And I didn't pass it. But then Ramon was like, yo, like what we do and what we really prioritize is like all of wholesale. Yeah. It's like you really don't need it.
You honestly don't want it sometimes.
It's worse.
Yeah, and I've heard different opinions on it. So
depends on what you do.
Yeah,
if you have it in your office, it's nice.
So we have Ruben. Ruben's licensed, but like we don't want to be licensed because like if something happens, there's so much red tape and bullshit around it that we're more autonomous without it. So
it's the legalities of it all.
Yeah. Right? So we have the utility of having it on board whenever we need it, but like we don't need to be licensed.
Right.
So
that's kind of what it was. Like I try to pursue that just to kind of get the foundation and the basics. And then Rodrigo was actually the one who was like, hey, I could teach you what you need to know to do the wholesale and like the dispo essentially. Well, when it was kind of when I started when we had the idea of Dispo Sharks.
Okay.
So I kind of started off doing like the acquisitions. I tried it. I got hung up. I hated the rejection. Like I was like, this is the worst thing ever. I don't ever want to do acquisitions. And then Ramon, developed like this dispo and relationship manager position. And I was like, that's all me. Like I love it because I love talking to people. Yeah.
Especially people that are like I don't want to say you're not helping acquisition, but at the same time in their mind, you're taking money out of their pocket and saying, no, you got yourself in a situation that I'm trying to get you out of.
Yeah.
Right.
But you don't see it that way, 99% of the people. So
the feedback I got from acquisitions, like everybody I would talk to, was you sound like a telemarketer. And I think it's because like I come from being a flight attendant where you have to be like prim and proper and like say announcements. And I was like, shit, man, I suck at this.
You like doing the seatbelt thing as you're talking to them?
Yeah. I was like, I totally suck at it.
Ruben's over there throwing yo-yos through the fucking wall on the phone calls and stuff.
Yeah, dude. And you're over there like the exit row, and they're like, huh? Like, wait, what?
No,
Wait,
literally.
the exit strategy is you're going to sign this document.
That's hilarious.
So,
well, if it makes you feel any better, I hated the acquisitions portions too. I think some of it too, and there's been people watching that like just maybe aren't naturally good at acquisitions or like kind of fights against their, like for me, I had an internal struggle with it for several reasons. One, I was actually pretty good at it and I kind of knew what I was doing, but I actually felt like for me, it was an issue of like, I didn't feel like we were on the same level, so I didn't want to engage in like what I thought was a fight.
Right.
But now I have a little bit different view of it, but a lot of it's reps. I mean, a lot of it's just like getting way better at it. In order to get way better at it, like you just have to like suck for a long time.
I think it's like a lot of practice for sure. But I knew right off the bat, I was like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be banging the phones like 100 times a day. Like, no.
Yeah. So if you're struggling right now with the acquisitions portion, you have to like, there's a little bit of an internal, you got to look inside a little bit and be like, is this me?
Yeah.
Like, is this a natural thing that I'm going to fight against my entire time doing this? And if so, how long can I withstand, right? Can I do it the next 6 months where I can afford to bring somebody on? Or do I need to like kind of cut bait and go a different direction and find something that suits me just more naturally? Because there is a little bit of a battle with that.
Right, 100%. I can agree more.
Okay, so you move over into the dispositions, and then what was like kind of the first steps from there? Is it like, hey, let's go out and build some of these relationships? Or is it just like, hey, start answering the phones or these emails that are coming through or whatever?
At first, Ramon was like, hey, like, to really get yourself out there and like have people in the industry know who you are and what you do, you need to like just market yourself, right? So
yourself
exactly, like at all the events, like I was making sure to talk to every single person. I was going to all the meetups. I was trying to introduce myself to all the big players in the game. Ramon was a huge help in that by like including me on pretty much anything that he could, like, hey, this is my new dispo person, like this is what she does and this is how she's gonna help you and make you money.
That third party verification helps.
Yes,
a lot of times.
100%. Yeah, and like nobody knows who you are. Why are they gonna want to work with you?
But if Ramon will co-sign, they're like, okay.
Exactly, which I'm so very grateful for because not a lot of people are like that. And he really, like for the entire team, really puts everybody on like a platform and like
he's very good at that.
Hypes everybody up. He really puts all his team on, and I think that's what's allowed me to build success so quick.
Love it.
Yeah,
I love it. So that was that officially like that start was 9 months ago from now? Wow. And so we've done deals together. We have one in progress literally right now. We had to hire an attorney. It's getting real fun. But tell us about we want to hear about like what's one of the big deals. Tell us about.
So just a few months ago, I closed on my biggest deal, which was $25,000 assignment fee for the dispo.
That's huge.
I really think so. Yeah,
that's huge.
It was so crazy. Like, and the story behind it is even crazier.
And was that so start from the beginning, but so we know for reference, are you guys direct to seller on this lead, or is this like a JV deal?
So this is a relationship deal. Yeah, they brought it to me. But where the relationship came from is absolutely insane. So
let's hear it.
I used to be back in the day when I was in El Paso, I used to be a bottle girl.
Okay.
So at the clubs, and this is when I was actually trying to pay off my lawyer for when I had gotten arrested.
Yeah.
So I was working like 3 jobs at the time, one of them being a bottle girl on the weekends. Well, my manager, Victor, he hits me up recently, right? He's like, hey, I've been following your social media. Noticed you're in like real estate. Like you're doing like this whole wholesale deal. Like, what is it? Like, it sounds super cool. See, it's like really cool to see where you came from and now you're doing this.
Yeah.
And then I'm like explaining to him like kind of what we do, and he's like, well, I want to get into it. And I was like, yeah, like this is what you do. I think we just had the 1-day intensive, so like I kind of shared like that knowledge. Well, he ends up like really putting action into it, and like a week later, like gets a freaking deal under contract.
Really?
Jesus,
my bar manager from when I was like 5 freaking years ago.
And he's here in El Paso.
He is actually like in Texas.
Oh, okay.
So he's like somewhere like up in Texas. I don't even know
They
where.
got one here, huh?
So he calls me, like this was like a 30-minute conversation. A week later, 2 weeks later, he calls me. He's like, Annette, I took everything you told me. I got this deal into contract. I think it's a deal. Can you review it? And I'm like, yeah, like send it to me. Well, he gets this like mobile home under contract in Prescott. He like, it's like such an ideal freaking deal. Like he knew what he was doing. He
Really?
like really like, he got a really solid deal. I was like, I could sell this shit.
Yeah.
I tacked on like $40K initially in the assignment fee before sending it out to my buyer. And, you know, they brought me down and we ended up closing 7 days, $25,000 assignment fee. Yeah. But he made, I think, and this was his first wholesale deal ever, right?
Yeah.
In a week after figuring all this information out.
That doesn't always happen.
Yeah. I
You're
just want
listening.
everybody to know this is not like,
Yeah.
it's just crazy. And I love to talk about it because it's like my first big deal,
Yeah.
and then his first deal ever.
Yeah.
From somebody I know in my past that we come from working in a club. So I think he made $40,000 on that one. Mm-hmm.
So
On a-
65K.
Yeah, I was
spread.
gonna say on a mobile, 65K spread.
Yeah.
In Prescott.
Yeah. Don't sleep on mobiles though. Mobiles.
People.
No, there's
that-
money in there.
Oh, there's so much money in mobiles. We like mobiles because people don't. I just think people don't. Well, one, some people don't understand them because there are some like little nuances that come with them.
Yeah.
But they think there's no money in them because I'm like, no. There's a lot of money in
There's so
mobiles.
much money. And it's all about like how much you buy into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it was crazy. It was really
That's
crazy.
dope.
And now, you know what, it's so funny because when we had that initial conversation, he was telling me, he's like, I sold the club. He tried to pursue multiple other businesses. They all failed. And then he saw like this whole real estate thing and what I was doing was super inspired. I kind of gave him like, you know, this is kind of how you do it, like the handbook. He really made it happen.
And now he's got 40 G's in his pocket to go pursue it some more.
And you know what? He just told me that he closed on like $100,000 deal not too long
What?
ago. Yeah.
Damn.
So he's taking this full wholesale thing all the way.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
So shout out Victor.
Yeah, hey, shout out Victor. I don't know
Yeah.
you, Victor, but shout out, dude. It's cool to hear, and why we always talk about like the story beforehand. Like it's cool to hear that struggle. Like, yeah, $25,000 checks are dope, right? Like they're
Yeah.
super cool, but like they don't just come out of thin air, right? Like there
No.
always is a story. It's like every single time we talk to somebody, there's a story of like it's never just like, oh, I decided to start well, Victor's kind of like that. Victor, your story is rare.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Oh, I want to start wholesaling. Oh, here's $40,000. That's usually not how it works, but it's cool to see like where you come from. And I always have so much compassion for people that like, no matter where you're at in life and what cards you were handed, we're all, I think, all pretty blessed to be here, especially in the United States. I know people have that's a contradictory opinion right now, which is insane to me, but there's a lot going on throughout the world that like, just no matter what's going on, we are just so much better off being here, and you do have the opportunities. So it's always cool to see somebody that came from literally like, you could have gone like, I feel like there's like a true fork in the road.
100%. I could have been dead, like on some real shit, you know?
Yeah.
Like, but no, yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Did you get yourself anything nice with like a little bit? You break yourself off a little bit? Or what's up?
Well, I bought my dream car.
I was gonna
so,
say, I think it was a car.
Yeah.
What'd you get?
The car.
So
Mercedes something, right?
before I was driving the Benz, I had like a really beat up 2009 Nissan Altima.
Yeah.
And like for the longest time, I've always wanted a Mercedes Benz, so I got myself a CLA 250. Yeah.
Damn. Little upgrade.
Yeah. Oh my God, it was like literally amazing.
That's
Well,
awesome.
and honestly, stuff like that too. It's like you have to do it because when you wake up and you walk outside and you see it, it's like, all right, I bet you I can do more.
Well,
let me
It's
get
so
more.
motivational.
you
man.
feel
Like,
different.
Yeah, let me
right?
let me
Yeah.
get more out of it.
well, the
'cause I
thing
know I
is
can.
like for me, it was like I didn't come from money, right? Like at all. But I did come from the grind. Like I knew, like I know what it takes to make shit happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so like having this happen, the whole proof of concept, and it's also being surrounded by,
I was gonna say connections.
yes, having those connections and being surrounded by the people that are actually on that level. So it really took me there.
Well, you get to
Yeah.
see the way their brains work too. It's
Yeah.
not always about just like, oh, they have the connection or whatever they are. Like you get to see them day to day and like how they operate and the choices they're making and the things they're talking about, right? Where it's like you almost forget when you're not in this world that like there are people that like don't do that at all.
At all.
Like they just like go to work and then go home and just like
Robots.
bitch and complain
Yeah.
and do whatever,
Yeah.
It's
blow their
freaking
money and
crazy,
then like
man.
Do it again.
on that
next
wheel.
Next week, got to go back Monday
like,
because
it's
I'm out
crazy.
of money again.
Well, then
Yeah.
like 40 years passes, right? And they're still working. They're
Yeah,
like, oh,
same
when am
spot.
I going to get retirement?
Yeah.
Hell no.
No, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Mindset's very different for a
Yeah.
lot of people,
100%.
and it's hard. It's hard to once again, if you're not connected in a group that's doing that, or even like getting put in front of you, you don't really realize there is a better thing you can do. But
get connected.
Well,
Like the way you get connected is like bring value to
Reach
the table.
out
Like when
and
you reached
figure
out
it
to
out.
Ramon, you were like, hey, our stories are similar, right? So one, there's like an emotional connection probably there too, but you were also like, hey, here's what I can do for you.
Yeah.
You weren't just like, hey, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
You were like, here's what I can do
like,
for you.
can I make money doing this? It's like, I mean, you can make money doing anything.
Yeah.
How hard are you going to work at it? And like, is it something you actually are going to go into?
But it's definitely about like being exposed to it all, right? Like I was never exposed to any of this up until I met my team and Ramon, and like he comes from the struggle, man. Like there's no bullshit behind it. Like he really came from the grind. So
And to let you know, holy shit, it's like actually possible. Because
Yeah,
people say it, you're like,
literally.
oh, you can do whatever you want, dream big dreams. But you're like, yeah, that's like cute and sounds fun. But then when you see it, you're like, holy shit, like because Ramon's obviously like, I think he's like a marketing genius. I think he's a hard worker. He's a very nice guy. Like he's got the charisma. He's got a little bit of all that.
Yeah.
But there's nothing crazy
Smart.
exceptional.
Yeah,
like
it's not like it's like, oh, he's so smart. He went to Harvard. He did this. Like it's
No.
not that.
no, he's in the office. He's usually the last one to leave.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like he's in there like
hard ass
he-
work.
He has an entire team that does the dispo acquisitions and everything, but he's still in the office every day.
Yeah,
So like, yeah, the grind is still present.
yeah. So that's a good example too. Good example because boy's got a Lambo. He's got a big crib. He's doing it, yet he's still in the office hustling.
With us, yeah. He
Yeah.
sits at the table with us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy.
well, that's awesome. Well, hey, we appreciate you coming
Of
on.
course.
Appreciate the story. Glad to hear about them big checks. We like big checks. If you got anything out of this episode at all, go down here. I think it's like down here. Like, subscribe, comment, unlike it, relike it. Follow Annette on social media. You want to use your personal one or the Dispo Sharks one? Which one do you want to plug?
I'll say both. Yeah, follow me on both. My personal one is Annette Joe, so it's ANNETTEEJOO, and then our business one, where you can send deals or anything that has to do with Dispo, would be just Dispo Sharks.
And we'll put all our stuff in the link in the bio. She moves deals for us all the time. They can move deals that like literally I'm like, nah, no way. There's no way. And then they move it. I'm just like, oh, that's insane. So send her whatever you got. You guys are just still doing your podcast too, right? Let's plug that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we do our podcast every Thursday. So it's just a Dispo Shark studio. We like to have anybody on that does deals. So do a deal with me and I'll get you on the podcast.
Yep. And then you guys are already working on
6.0.
6.0, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I'm super excited for that. These events are so massive. Like we have thousands of people there, but we put on people on stage that are doing business in the game, right? Like they're, real hustlers, making money, doing business, closing deals. So if you want to be on stage at 6.0, we put anybody on. You don't have to be some like
They put
high
me
almighty.
on. If they'll put me on, they'll put anybody on. So
Yeah, so hit me up. I would definitely love to have you on stage.
awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming out.
Thanks.
This is the Big T Podcast. We're out.